Hello everybody, I'm MC Toon and it is Tuesday night. And normally on a Tuesday night I have a debate with a flat earther or something similar, but this week I am traveling and I don't even know where I'm going to be because I recorded this 2 weeks ago. So in the place of my regular debate, what I have is a conversation that I had with Jeran. It was a very civil conversation. It was in no means a debate. It's about a half hour long. And we talked about a couple different things. I was trying to get to talk about the experiment he did, and we didn't really get into it enough. So I'm going to give him another call back. We'll set up another time, or I'll just call into his show, and we'll do that. But this was pretty good. I think you might enjoy it. So here it is, my conversation with Jeran.
All right, let's go. Who's next? Oh boy, I see who's next. I'm gonna have to demand an apology here too. Let's see. Mick Tuners, are you ready to give me an apology before I start your clock?
I will address, I think, what you want to talk about.
Okay, let's go ahead and address it, because otherwise I'm not gonna let you on the show, because it's pretty blatant misunderstanding or just confusion on your part. But go ahead, I'll see what you have to say.
It's probably a misunderstanding. So I think you're talking about the ISS transit, and I asked you to I challenged you to unredact your screenshot, right? Is that what you're talking about, right?
Okay.
And the reason why is I said that the data that you redacted could be used. You could use the geometry of the globe to get your position. And you did do, all right. So I challenged you to unredact it, and I would
Give me money or something.
I would give you $300 if you gave the solution to it using the globe geometry, and anybody else, the first one to do it, would get $100. But you did address that, and it wasn't based on the globe geometry, was it? It was using the ISS tracker to pinpoint, to use that to try to find it.
So I crossed them out because somebody could, now not you, because it's too far in the future now, but
yes,
at the time I put the video out, anybody could have gone in and just reverse engineered it and found my home location.
And you're correct.
You made a video saying
yes.
Jeran knows the Earth's a globe because this and this, but that's completely false.
So that's right. So I will apologize.
Thank you.
I'll apologize for that. But tell you what I'll do. I will I'll modify it.
If you were listening earlier, Brenda comes on here. She's screaming and yelling about me doing this. You did this. You
was Brenda on today?
Yeah. And she said the exact same thing. She said, you know the Earth's a globe. You know that's a globe, and McToon already proved it. So I mean, that's what happens when
I got it wrong on that. So here's what I'll do. I'll do this. I have and it's a good point, because the ISS tracker, you can go and pinpoint it just by brute force, but you can't do it on there for past transits. After some point, they don't store the data.
Right, not all past. You could do it yesterday's and the day before.
Yeah. So Here's what I'll do. I will redact that challenge, and I will instead do a new challenge. And what I've done is I've found a transit. I've taken a screenshot of it, I think yesterday or maybe today. And what I'll do is I will reissue the challenge, $300 to you, and I'll give you dibs, $100 to somebody else. And I'm certain that somebody will get it. So this is $100 I will definitely spend. I will post an unredacted version of it after it's gone off of the ISS tracker's website. So they have to use globe geometry or whatever geometry works to get the position. I'll send it to you first. I'll give you a whole day before I publish a video.
My question is, the transit that you found has to be in the same location as you. Has to be around your location, or we won't be able to find it, because we won't know the time zone of the place that it's in.
Yeah, I'll publish a time zone. It's Central Time.
Okay. So you know what I'm saying? I can't go pick one in Israel and then have it, because people will not be able to know. They have to know that the time zone is the same. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'll email it to you.
Sure.
Good. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that wasn't the topic, but I figured it would come up. So
Yes.
I hope we're good on that.
Will you keep that video up?
Which one?
The one that has me on the front that says Grifter. Grifter thinks the Earth's a globe or knows the Earth's a globe.
Do you want me to take it down?
I would guess that you would have the kind of integrity that you would pull it down.
That's a good point. I will take that down, and if I redo something on that topic, I'll leave out that stuff.
Okay,
that's fair.
Because I do not think that the Earth's a globe in any way. So that's what's upsetting about it. And even if this is what I tried to ask Brenda earlier, and I'll ask you the same question.
Okay.
Let's just pretend hypothetically that the Earth was flat. When I say was, meaning in the past it was flat, whatever. Could people have taken a flat Earth and mapped it onto a sphere? Is it possible for mathematicians, cartographers, projectionists? Is it possible to map a flat map onto a sphere?
Yeah, that geometry is possible. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, Brenda said no, and she got hung up on for it because it's just a stupid statement to make. So then if we then have it mapped on a sphere, let's say people start to believe that they live on the sphere because it's mapped on the sphere. And then they make a GPS and GPS matches the sphere. Then people like you would be on your channel telling people that GPS proves that they live on a sphere when you just don't know the step before that is that it was flat. So that's the mistake you guys keep making, is it doesn't matter that GPS works. We know that they now have it mapped on a sphere. We know there's a device that tells you where you live on that sphere, but none of that means you live on a sphere. So that's where I can't grasp how you can be that naive to think like, oh no, if there's GPS, we have to live on a sphere. What do you mean? Well,
it depends how GPS works, right? You can get a directional antenna and see which direction the signal's coming from, right? And you can see if it's coming from the ground or if it's coming from the sky.
Can we ask you real quick about that? Because I don't understand something about that. So if these, because I guess I had this wrong. So the satellites, supposedly, the GPS satellites, they transmit to your cell phone, or to the towers, right? But they don't receive anything. It's just a transmitter.
Yeah.
But my question is, the speed of light, which is going to be used to calculate the time that it takes for that signal to hit your phone, doesn't change when you've got different weather patterns. What if we've got overcast? What if it's raining? What if it's snowing? That doesn't change the speed of light?
It does.
Well, then GPS doesn't exist.
I can explain that, though. So the majority of the travel is through a near vacuum, right? So the satellites are in, I don't remember the exact type, but it's like a medium
12,500.
12,500
miles.
Okay. So yeah, that's a pretty good distance. And the bottom 50 miles of the atmosphere is where it starts to be, thicker air, and the bottom, I think 6 miles. But they have to be so exact. They tell us that they use these atomic clocks. Mm-hmm. So they're so exact, but then how would it know what the weather pattern was? It doesn't know what the weather pattern is.
Well, then it doesn't know where I'm at because the speed would change.
How much does it change as a proportion?
I don't know, but it does. Even if it's a tiny fraction of a fraction, isn't that going to adjust then it doesn't know where I'm at? Yeah.
It'll affect the margin of error. Certainly.
I'll have to look into that. That seems to me to pretty much throw GPS out of the window.
And if you look at the actual, all the documentation is publicly available.
No, it's not. The GPS is held by the U.S. government. It's a closed source code from the Air Force.
What?
Or the
no. Air Force. So the actual specification for how the GPS signaling works is publicly available.
Okay.
So you can, and people do this, right? Your phone has somebody wrote the software to do it, not the U.S. government, to implement the protocol, the specification. I mean, I write software. This is what I look at all day. To implement the protocol, you read the signal, and essentially the satellites are sending the time and their location in 3D space. That's what they send. And so when you get it, you say, all right, well, based on the time, I know that the gap of how long it took and where they were. So when you get 3, 4, 5 different signals, you can trilaterate or multilaterate. You don't think
that that's ludicrous that we have cell towers, McToon, within a mile of us all around, meaning that all it takes is 3 stationary cell towers pinging off your phone to tell you exactly where you're at. Why would anybody believe that we're communicating with devices 12,500 miles away?
Have you ever done it on a plane?
Done what on a plane?
I don't mean the Mile High Club, Jeran.
I have not done that on a plane.
It's too cramped. I can't imagine people do that.
No,
have you ever turned on the GPS on your phone while you're on a plane?
No, I think that's not allowed. But anyway.
Well, they say it's not, but don't tell anybody.
I tend to care about not crashing the plane.
No, they stopped doing that. They stopped.
Yeah, I know. My buddy used to do it all the time. We went down to Arizona and just pissed me off that the plane got there every time. So I figured it was a joke.
So yeah,
all right, I gotta let you go because it's been 3 minutes. But you can come back next Thursday and
come on! I didn't even get to my topic.
What? Make it quick.
It was the video that you didn't watch. Did you watch it yet?
I have not watched it.
Oh, all right. Can you watch it?
You're talking about the one where you talk about the Canal experiment.
Yeah, I analyzed it. And so, I mean, if you
can give me your quick premise, but I thought that somebody said that you talked to somebody that was there and they say there was only one panel or something.
Well, it was a comment on your video that somebody wrote that was there. And it's my understanding then from that there's just one panel in the middle. Is that right?
Yeah, I had to ask Enrique because I didn't remember, but I was going to check a couple things. But because the thing is we went the night, there was 2 different experiments. So it's hard to remember which one was which. The original one was the laser, and that one had the multiple panels. Then we changed it over to the viewing the light from a distance.
Yeah.
And I think that we may have just had the camera measured and then the hole in the middle and then him at the backboard.
Yeah.
So if you count the backboard too. But
with no panel by Enrique, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, let me say this. And I listened to when Brenda was on a couple weeks ago. And she talked about 8 inches per mile squared. And in this instance, it's the correct formula.
Right. So can you please voice that to people because they...
Oh, I did. And I actually talked to Brenda afterwards and I said, hey, this was wrong in what you said. And, of course, Brenda's like, okay. Let
me explain it. See if I explain it correctly, just so I understand it. If we're talking about something hidden over a distance, then it matters, obviously. If I'm up higher than that, you can see further.
Yeah.
So, okay, that makes sense why you would need to include your height. But I'm correct. Whenever you're doing a laser experiment, let's say, for example, then in that case, you would still need to use it there. The only time you would not need to use it when you can just use 8 inches per mile squared is in the experiment I did, because we are the baseline. There is we're not above the baseline.
But it's not, and here's the analysis that I think you missed. It's not the distance from Enrique to the camera, to you, right?
Why not?
It's actually the distance from Enrique to halfway between the panel and the camera. So it's about 2.25 miles, not 3 miles. And the reason why, imagine if you had panels
Hold on a second.
Okay.
So you wouldn't take the full distance from the camera to the...
No, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine that for that entire 3 miles, you had a panel every 10 feet, including the panel immediately in front of Enrique.
Okay.
Right. And say it's as high as needed. And you have the holes at 17 feet the whole way.
Correct.
And if the earth is flat, then what?
You should be able to see the light through all the holes.
Yeah. And if the earth is a globe, you should not. Now, if Enrique holds it up above 17 feet at 18, 19, 20, 23 feet, doesn't matter how high, that panel's right in the way, isn't it? The panel's hole is only at 17.
Right.
All right. So now let's take away the panel immediately in front of Enrique. And so then there's a 10-foot gap between Enrique and that first panel.
Gotcha.
Will the light make it through?
No, because you have to remember that the camera is at full zoom. The camera for 3 miles has to be zoomed in through every hole all the way down. I mean, it's zoomed as much as can be.
Yeah. But so I'm saying for the globe. Now, so Enrique is now holding it at the correct height for the globe, whatever that height is. We can figure that math out in a minute. But he's holding it at whatever is the correct height for the globe. But the hole's at 17. So he's going to be holding it above 17, and he's only 10 feet away. Is that hole going to be the right height?
I'm confused what you mean. No, we wouldn't see it.
Yeah, correct. So let's take away all of those except for the middle one.
Right.
It's still not the right height because the line of sight, the path that the light needs to take from the light through the hole to the camera actually it has to go, it's angled down as it's passing through the hole. And it actually comes to its lowest point halfway between the panel and the camera. And then it actually is going to rise back up in elevation to get to the camera.
Yeah, I'll have to watch your video. You lost me there.
So I went over that in the video. And if I got it wrong, if you think I erred on that, fine. I'd love to hear it. But I'm, Jeran, I'm going to poke at you a little bit.
I don't mind that.
I tried to be fair. Okay. And
do you think it's embarrassing for Globers to demand from, whenever we give an experiment, like if you tell Brenda, hey, we did this experiment, she would say, what was the refraction? What was the refraction index? What was the temperature? So that is what's required of our experiments, unless our experiment proves the globe, in which case all that's needed is the word interesting. Nobody's ever asked me one question about that. No one's even asked me, what was the temperature? What was the refraction? What was the index?
You're right.
It's interesting.
You're right.
So it's pretty embarrassing for Globers to realize what their level of required evidence is. You guys will accept anything, including me in a hit piece movie, saying interesting. That says a lot more about you guys than it does me.
So, well, you make a fair point.
And just so you know, the word interesting was said because we had already tried the globe height. We didn't see it. We tried the flat height. We didn't see it. We're like, I was kind of like pissed. And I was like, put it above your head. He put it above his head. And we said, interesting. Why? Because it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
So nothing was proven.
I'll tell you, without refraction, the correct height is 20 feet.
Okay.
With a small amount of refraction, the correct height is 19 and a half. And with it, a slightly more refraction, the correct height is about 20.
And that's with the panel in the middle.
Yes.
But what did you say about the distance being 2.5 miles? Where'd you get that?
So the lowest point of the path of the light from Enrique to you is halfway between the panel and you, which is 2.25 miles from Enrique. So
you're like considering that being on the top of a hump?
That would be the closest. I mean, if you're going to like do it like that. And in the graphic, I used the graphic from the movie. And I tried to correct
the movie had the wrong amount of panels.
Yeah. And so what I did is in Photoshop, I like chopped it all up and
gotcha.
I put it, and I only have one panel in the graphic, and I tried to do it right. Cause Jeran, your experiment.
Do you think that it's the best experiment? I think it's the best one still. It just hasn't been, it needs to be done. Well, actually,
I wouldn't.
Hold on. I'm lying about that.
I'm not, okay.
That wasn't true. I meant the laser. If you could find a laser that held less than 6 inches of a beam diameter, which I found one that claims it will, but they won't guarantee it because they say that's mathematics and in a lab, not in the real world. But if you could keep a laser beam at less than 6 inches, you could thread the needle through several panels over a distance and see where the laser hits the back panel. But the problem is when we did it, as soon as it hit the hole, as soon as the beam got too big, then you cause an interference pattern and you get like a snow.
And lasers are tough. Everybody thinks that it's like a pencil, but it's not.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing we don't know, if it's somehow bending in some direction or something.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go.
All right, thanks,
for
Jeran.
the call. Appreciate it. We've got Nathan M. Sorry about the wait.